So welcome to the 12-step recovery program, or how to recuperate from cultural shock. I see that some of you, like you, brought your sponsor, right? Sponsor? Yeah, good for you. Yeah, I see a few of you that you brought your sponsor. This is how it goes. So, we have so much information to cover because there are 12 steps. So you have to bear with me. It's very important, okay? So, let's get started. There's so much information. So, we're gonna get started with me. As you may or may not know by my accent, I am a recovering immigrant. So, this is me. What do you see here? So that is me when I was little and I was at my uncle's cottage. Most people, when they see those pictures, they think that that's where Dora the Exploradora came from. And if you could see the rest of the picture, you would see that my belly was sticking out. Over there, that picture with the mullet, that was 3 weeks before I moved to Canada. And that guy that you see there, he's a famous singer now. Good looking guy. Here, you see me receiving an award from Chile for all the work that I've done outside of Chile. Now, I love this picture so much because this picture, if you can see, these are tapestries of life. I helped with a great group of women to organize these pieces that came from all over the world that said Justicia. And it was then, after all this work, it was then exhibited as part of the permanent collection in the Museum of Human Rights in Chile. Looking good there. In that picture, I received my first arts awards. The other one, with my black hair, I was like 20 pounds lighter. I love that picture. And here, I'm with some of my favorite people here locally. Most artists. And I love the artists because the artists have made my life so much better in the last 20 years. This picture was taken for something or other for the CBC, and here I'm receiving the Canada 150 gold medal. See, some may say that I am a pretty successful entrepreneur of the arts. Some may say that I'm a good-looking mother. Some may say that I've done well for myself, that I've become a leader, a champion in this community. Some may even say that I'm beautiful. Well, no, maybe not some. A few. Everybody. 3, 2. Actually, where is my husband today? He was here yesterday, so I could at least point at one person. This is important. There is a starting point. And believe me, being transplanted is a very, very complicated thing. Do you know what transplanted? See, I have to go through all these points so that you can see that there is a point to this exercise. Believe me. Okay, how many of you have you ever moved a plant, a mature plant, from one pot to another? Did you know that for the plant to become healthier in the next environment, you have to cut half of it? Only then the roots can be stronger.
Wow.
And if you don't cut half of it, your plant will die.
True.
So how many of you had to cut half?
Almost all.
To survive in that healthy environment.
Only
how many of you are transplanted here tonight? Lift your hand if you are transplanted. See, I see many of you. Of course, everything has its starting point. So we have to start with the starting point. Because nothing is a coincidence. And so much of what happens here today has to do with what happened back there, in my country, Chile. See, I was born in the desert of Atacama, one of the driest deserts in the world. So dry, it's even drier than the Sahara. So dry, in fact, it only rained once every 4 years. You should have seen the spectacle that became, because this is what happens when it rains. Oops. See, this is the beauty of the desert. This is Copiapó, where I basically was raised. And this is what happens when it rains in the desert. It's called El Desierto Florido. It's such a spectacle that nobody goes to work. I mean, how could you, really? The priest of our school, they rented buses so that they could take us to see that. Of course, everybody gathered in the center of the town. Everybody, because nobody could miss this miracle that it was every bit of rainfall that came from the sky. After about half an hour, when everything had stopped, all the neighbors and the friends would gather around in the plaza, like the center of town, and they would comment. There's so much sadness sometimes. The lady, Maria, who always had a cigarette in her mouth, she always said, "Don't you think it rained a little more this time around?" And she would comment it to my auntie Edith, who would say, "I am so sad that Choche wasn't here to see it. I told him get out of the hospital in time, but he didn't." And then my auntie Sylvia, she would say, "Okay, neighbors, my friends, I better go back to open up the boliche again, because things are not going to sell themselves." And they would do this with so much nostalgia in their hearts, carrying this umbrella, huge umbrella, and those thick rubber boots. Yes, I come from the desert, where every day was hot and sunny, where the only tree that we had was a weeping willow that nobody knew how the heck it got there. But it was our best prop for all our children, our games. So when we were playing when we were playing pirates, it was our ship. It was our palace when we were presidents. And of course, it was our home when we were moms and dads. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here because of the rain, the heat of that weeping willow. No, I'm here because, well, let's just move to the next part.
No. You want to know it?
Number one in our program is called The Reasons. I was born in Chile in 1973 as the first dictatorship, one of the bloodiest and cruelest dictatorships took place in my country. How long do you have to live to see freedom? How many had to to die so that we could see freedom. Many surrendered their blood, their dignity, and thousands disappeared. Thousands were tortured or killed. Thousands were dropped off from helicopters with a brick in their legs. Many are still missing, and then they find these unmarked graves. But still, thousands of mothers were left without the last embrace.
Like in Syria.
Like in Syria and Iran. So you see that girl there? That's me. And another million people. There were 1 million people in that concert. It was in La Bandera in 1990. And I was one in a million. See, I can't go back. I just can't go back. Loneliness is like a black hole. Those 4 walls were cold. The floor was cold and dirty. I can't go back. They won't take my dignity away. They won't. They won't stop me from thinking. I was thinking, see, there is no medicine for this kind of pain. There is no medicine that can take away that space left in your heart. No, I can't go back. I have to continue. I have to carry on. They will not take my dignity, and they will not change me. Sorry, I was just thinking. Let's carry on to the next step. Arriving to North America. As a transplant, a person who sees themselves in another country, in a different soil, under a different sky. You do that sometimes overnight, and that was the case. As I was leaving Chile, Santiago Marino Benitez Airport, my mother gave me a letter and said, don't read it until you get to the plane. I saw my father, my strong father, my stoic father, cry for the very first time. I saw his heart break into 1,000 pieces right before my very own eyes. Many years later, he said, I wasn't crying because you were leaving, Isabel. I was crying because I could not do anything to give you more opportunities and to change that. When I opened my letter, it said, as much as it hurts me to see you leave, don't come back until you've made something of yourself. So there I am, here in Toronto Pearson with my 2 suitcases and my $60 American. See, I don't know if my father knew that there were Canadian currencies at the time, but that's okay. That was just a small item in a big ship. I was so excited because I had never seen the snow. When I left Santiago, it was 32 degrees. When I arrived here on a Good Friday, March 28, 1991, it was minus 22. I come out of the airport, I go to Hyde Park and I see this beautiful snow, white snow, shiny snow, sparkly, not so sparkly, it's so nice. You know, doing the snow angels. I got so chilled that day that for the rest of the month, every time I sneeze, I peed my pants. So that was welcome, Isabel. Right? So the point that you're gonna see now, and I want to show you something, so you understand how young I was when I left. I was 18 years old. That's my mother. And that's the letter in that briefcase there with all my documents. And that's the plane that took me here. He's taking me to the first mistakes. You know where I'm going with this, right? Of course. So you have to see. I didn't speak a word of English. And the only words that I knew so here and there were from songs. And it was the 80s. So you may know what words I'm talking about. Like, I love you, baby, yeah. That's pretty much it. So I started to try to talk to people. And of course, I'm only going to do 2 examples of those mistakes because I made many. So, for example, the day I was here in Waterloo at a gift shop because I used to go wandering the streets sometimes, just for no reason at all. And I saw this beautiful woman from the US. She was tall, she was gorgeous, and she had swag. She's walking, and I was so fascinated with her, I smiled. She must have saw me as friendly, and then she looks at me and says, "This is a beautiful gift shop. The more I see, the more I wanna." Oh, she's saying this to me because I'm Latina? So I looked at her with this look, and she turns around and says, "Yeah, the more I see, the more I wanna." And that's when I took matters into my own hands. And I looked at her and I put my finger right in front of her face and I said, "No, miss, no marijuana." She laughed so hard, as if she had heard the best joke of her life. And all I was left thinking was like, how rude these American gringos are. The next time was here in Heidelberg. This professor, blah, 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 from the University of Waterloo, who was all that in a bag of potato chips, invited me to his house for a dinner party with academics and students. I was invited because my friends spoke Spanish, and they took pity on me, so they wanted to feel more at home. Of course, when the dinner was going, and there was mostly guys, and they're talking about whatever, I couldn't even understand what they were talking about, I started to get really, really bored. So I'm here in this corner. You have to picture this. I'm here in the corner of the table. All of the guys are like, blah, 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 engineering, blah, 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 math, blah, 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 blah. And here I am in the corner, and there is a little gap of the sliding doors, like a French door sort of thing. And I could see that the kids of the professor were watching Saturday Night Live. Some watching, attentive, having a good time, whatever they're watching, and then all of a sudden the Red Hot Chili Peppers come on. So I'm like, yeah, and I looked at it like that, when he noticed, and he stopped the conversation. And from the other side of the table, he said, "Isabel, what are you watching?" And I was like, "TV." And then he's like, "Yeah, but what's on TV?" "Hot Chili Peppers." And he's like, "Oh, you like music?" "Yes, music, yes." And then he said, "And what kind of music is that?" So, okay. I had heard of music called hard rock. And that I also had heard of music called hardcore. So this takes me to point number 4, the fear. See, I had made so many more of those mistakes that I decided that I didn't want to talk. And I thought it's best to observe and try not to talk without thinking. But many of you know me. That didn't work out either. So then I started to have fear, so much fear. I fear that if I walked on the street, people will actually talk to me. I feared the streets. I fear getting into the public transportation. I fear going to a shop. I fear thunder and lightning. And I fear sometimes my own voice. I stopped laughing for the heck of it. I don't remember what made me happy. I started to talk to myself in my head because I felt like I was a 2-year-old that nobody understood and nobody wanted to understand. This brings me to the next part. You see this guy? I started to resent people because I started to think, what the hell do they even know? If they spoke my language, they will know that I'm super smart, well read, that I've seen so many good productions. If they actually spoke my language, they would know that I possess a very extensive vocabulary. That I am very eloquent, by the way. And I started to get really pissed off when they started to ask me, so, you're an actress? Because that's what I said to people, and I say, yes. Well, have you ever heard of Shakespeare? I had done my thesis in Shakespeare when I was in Chile, and I would get so angry. I said, yeah, I know, but what about you? Do you know of Neruda, of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, of Borges? Silence. That's when I started to resent. By the way, how many of you do know Borges and Neruda? Okay, just in case, I'm gonna show you a picture. In case somebody like me asks you in the future. So that guy is Shakespeare, everyone knows. And then here's Neruda, Pablo Neruda, best poet of the 20th century, love poet. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, right? Amazing writer. Isabel Allende, correct? There we go. This will make a lot of sense in about 5 minutes. This is when I started what I called the cartoon phase in my brain. Because I used to get so angry when people would say to me, where are you from? And I would say Chile. And I would say, what language do they speak in Chile? At that moment, because I don't know, like you don't speak very well, but you're not that. So I would like take it right back and say, in Spanish. And then all I could think in my head is like how much I would love to pull out of my pocket one of those big cartoonish hammers. You know, the one that you can boink in the head and it goes with the hat all the way to the feet. One time, this woman asked me, so, where did you from? And I said, I'm from Chile. No. The name of the country is Chile. I'm pretty sure it's Chile. No, you're wrong. Wrong. The name of the country is Chile. I read it in a book. At that time, I fantasized. Oh, by the way, I was at work, so I couldn't call her a bitch. So instead, what I said to her is like, oh, I'm so sorry. My bad. Thank you for clearing up this terrible confusion I had about the name of my country and all. While I was thinking about how awesome it will be to shove her into a barrel, put a few rounds of dynamite, and kick her down the Niagara Falls. You see why it makes sense? From that moment on, I became extremely negative. I compared everything and everyone that came my way. Well, in Chile, the bread is way tastier. Or like a sliced bread, you know. Well, in Chile, the weather is nicer. Not like here, cold, 9 months of the year. In Chile, people are warm, affectionate. Not like here, people are as cold as their winter. In Chile, people love to have fun. They dance, they eat, they laugh, and they do some more dancing. Not like here. Well, to exemplify that, I have to tell you, one time I was invited to a party. So I got all dressed up and dolled up with my fancy dress and my high heels, right? I was young, you know, long hair, big makeup. And I thought it's pretty curious that this party is at 4 p.m., but whatever. I don't know Canadians, so I just gave them the benefit of the doubt. I should have guessed by the front door sign that says go to the backyard, but whatever. I showed up with all my fancy dress to the party, and then I'm like, what the hell? Everybody's sitting around in the backyard watching the owner of the house flipping burgers. And that wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the fact that they weren't talking about anything that mattered to me, like religion, like politics, sex. See, in my country, I used to say, people love family. Family is the most important thing to people. As for here, the minute you forget where your keys are, they ship you to a residence house. You know, the old people's home? And the parents. They can't wait for their kids to turn 18 so they can get a job and go and live with their friends. That's my son. Note to self, I'm not letting you take me to an old people's home. And also, almost every day I forget where my keys are. In my country, people embrace. When they hug me here, it's like I have choked on a candy. Boom! In the back. See, I compared everything and everyone, and it got really exhausting. And I felt so negative. And it wasn't me, you know? So when I got tired with all these comparisons, I thought to myself, the only way to survive in this new environment will be to learn about them. Okay, so this is an example about dancing. This is the other. That's the 80s, it was fun. Look at the outfits. And not to self people. Okay, Canadian friends, how many of you? Lift your hands. One here. Not to self. A barbecue is not a party. So when you invite us, say you're invited to eat burgers. Because otherwise you're very confusing. Okay, that's another story altogether. That's another altogether. And then you take it back home when you're done. Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Take the rest with you.
okay, so we had, in my brain, in my mind, I had to study the Canadian species. Now, mind you, when you come from other countries, you think that all Canadians are white. You get quite a surprise when you come here and you're like, where are they? Where did they go? So, in order for me, no, it is so true. I'm not lying. I was like, so where are the Canadians? Especially when you get in the subway in Toronto and you're like, wow, where are the Canadians? Anyway, I needed to study these species. Like there was no other way to go about it. So I decided to start with the definition of Anglo-Saxon. I looked it up in the dictionary. No Google back then, right?
That's true.
And Anglo-Saxon, inhabitants of England from their arrival in the 5th century of the Norman conquest. Another term for Old English, a person whose ancestors were English. That didn't tell me shit. So, from here, I started to observe. I tried to be quiet and just observe, observe, observe. And so, of course, I came up with my own set of definitions and observations. Number one, and bear with me because there is a lot of them, but I tried to reduce a few. Number one,
No, it's not the
Canadians,
all of them.
Canadians love coffee. But more than coffee, they love Tim Hortons. And I figured that the Tim Hortons thing was the closest thing to a Mayan ritual. It is. See, the Mayans, there's a Mexican here, she can attest to this. The Mayans, they used to, first of all, make a big fire, put their cocoa, their hot chocolate, became a hot chocolate. They get all empowered, they drink the hot chocolate, and they'll go to kill their enemy. That's here. We get up, we get dressed, we get in our car, we go through this tunnel called the drive-thru, we ask for the double-double. When we get to the other side and they give it to us, we open the lid, we inhale, and we're ready. What? Don't you see the similarities? Number two observation. Canadians do not like to waste time at work. They show up on time, first of all. They do their stuff, they work hard. Half an hour break, bing! They put it even in their smartwatch. They put a half an hour, they put their alarm. They go back to work, they finish, go home. As for us, Latinos, well, we show up when we show up. When we get there, we have coffee, because first of all, we can't start the day without shooting the breeze, finding out what happened at home, what, soccer match was yesterday. Then we chat for a bit, we go to work, maybe we work for an hour, but then we realize, it's time for lunch. So we go home, we eat, we watch the soap opera, we take a nap. And sometimes we get up from our nap, we look at our watch and we're like, oh, it got kind of late. So we just stay. Latina. You know what I'm talking about.
I was in Copiapó.
So,
when we were raised.
especially if you are raised in the desert,
Yeah.
Not long. Anyway, third observation. Canadians don't dance. They jump. Okay. Of course, I'm generalizing a little bit. It might be the exception to the rule. But, bear with me. I love their enthusiasm, and you might be one of them. Inevitably, they actually study the moves. They want to dance salsa, so they go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They look at their feet. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You have to admire their determination, honestly. But inevitably, when the music gets louder, they kind of get lost in their own selves and they start to flip their hands as if they're dancing flamenco, right? And they go like 1, 2, 3. It's so much fun to watch. Back in the time, I'm talking about many years ago, when people see, I was kind of like the only Latina for many years around here, right? Like visibly, they would say, "Oh, you speak Spanish?" And I would say, "Yes, come to my house." Oh, they invited me. Oh my gosh, I feel so flattered. As soon as you get there, boom, cassette, CD, bamboleo, Gypsy Kings.
Oh my God.
And they're like, "Isabel, Gypsy Kings! Gypsy Kings!" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And they will be like, "What do the words say of the Gypsy Kings?" And you're like, "Okay, bamboleo, bamboleo." Oh yeah, I love it. Translate it for us. This happened to me so many times. The funny thing is that the Gypsy Kings are not even Spanish. They're like from Belgium or whatever. And bamboleo doesn't mean a damn thing. It's like saying blah blah blah. So when I got so used to it, when I actually started to love bamboleo after listening to a million times, the Macarena came out. To make my life miserable.
Oh my gosh.
Now with the Macarena is very interesting. Because the thing with the Macarena is that I love the Macarena. Not because I love dancing it, because I love watching my friends dance. It's like they have lost their pack of cigarettes. And they're like, they think they're doing it. And that's the best part, is that they're convinced in their head it's going really well. And they're like, the song is going and they're like,
Macarena?
do you know the Macarena, right? Dale tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo Oh man, I love that song. Canadians, you know, these Canadians don't like confrontations and very polite. We can skip that one, really. Canadians don't like talking about money. Never talk to Canadians about money because they get all flustered and red, right? But most of all, when they have a lot of it, they like to hide the fact that they have a lot of it. Not like in my country, it's like you have 2 cents and they're like, like Lamborghini, like, right? Now here is like chill. So my friend Kelly invited me once. She's like, "What are you doing the weekend?" I was like, "Nothing." She's like, "Do you mind? I can pick you up and I can take you to my cottage." And I'm like, "I'd love to." Cooler, boom, like hat and all of that stuff. And then when we showed up there, I was like, "Damn, your little cottage could be a private university."
It's true.
Okay. This may be the last comparison. Well, I have many more, but that was what I had back in the day. And it is that Canadians are very loyal. Loyal. It's like they were born to be monogamists. And if you are monogamist in this area and you're Mennonite, you will be a monogamite. As for us, change the subject. Okay, let's continue with the PowerPoint presentation. So here are some examples of Canadian comparisons. Come on. Tim Hortons. Rituals. Mayans. You see? You see? Then us again. Then again. More Tim Hortons. The Latin lover. This is where it gets extremely tricky. Did you know that there is a rumor going around for decades, actually, that Latinos are very good in bed? Okay. Raise your hand if you have ever had the privilege of knowing a Latino. Like really good. Well, perdonez-moi, there's a lot more than I thought. And when I mean really know, I don't mean like, I mean 1, 2, 3, right? Third base? 4. Yes.
You mean 4?
This is 4, yes. Home run, yeah. See, everything started with the damn lambada. Do you remember the lambada that Raven did dance? Da 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 da. Okay, and it got downhill from there. If it weren't from the lambada, by the way, you wouldn't have people like Jennifer Lopez, Penelope Cruz, Salma Hayek, as famous as they are doing great roles. They will still be stuck doing prostitutes, and people like Pedro Pascal will be a drug dealer forever. See, the lambada came to change everything because all of a sudden we were really cool, right? The lambada changed everything, and I can tell you, back then, it was great pressure being Latina here in Canada. When everybody's got to accept the sensuality of Latinos, guess what happened? No? Reggaeton. And that came to make matters worse. Okay, do you want a demonstration? Do you know what reggaeton is, by the way? It's the type of music that people dance, that you do this thing called perreo. You're looking at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about. So, perreo, I don't know why it's called perreo. Perreo comes from the word perro, which means dog. So you're like dogging, right? I know. Okay, that came out totally wrong. But in some way, it might have something to do with it. Anyway, reggaeton is all about the moves of the hips. The lambada was sensual, but the reggaeton is like next level. Because then you're not only moving your hips, but you are doing it pretty close, right? So you want a demonstration or not?
Yeah.
Okay. pictures. Okay, go for it. Yeah, guys, come on. That's enough. My sciatica starts. It's not the same to do this stuff when you are like in your 20s. Yeah. So anyway, I'll let you in a little bit of a secret, okay? But promise me, you won't be telling anyone. Because if you do, then, I mean, we won't be able to walk out on the street. We're gonna be like sex on a stick, right? The reason why we're good. We're really good. It's because we hug, we kiss, we touch all the time. We do it during business hours, we do it outside business hours. We do it at the church, at the school, in the park, in the hospital, in the bus stop. Basically, you can do it even in a garbage disposal place. You do it often. We practice. We practice and we practice. And of course, practice makes perfect. We have really advanced on our step. So, you know, this 12-step recovery program, and this is point 8, the original. So I go back home after 3 years being away. I was so happy to smell those smells that I dreamt of for so long. Because by the way, those 3 years were a small eternity, and you don't go back home for the first time. As I was at the airport, they searched me as if I was a criminal. They opened my bags. They looked at everything. I was okay with that. But when I went to take the bus to get to my parents' house, I was mugged on the street. The guy looked at me and grabbed my hand and took my bag. He took everything that mattered to me at that time, like my passport, my little money, and my diary. When I finally made it home, the first words from my dad were, "You're such an idiot." Isabel, in 3 years you forgot how to be street smart? Those assholes, they smell dollars. Welcome home. When I arrived there, my mother took me to see every relative that I had. Even those distant relatives I didn't know I had. They thought I was such a celebrity. They all wanted to invite me for tea. And it was so special because I had become this big commodity once I left. See, I started to realize that people were not as nice as I thought they were. And speaking of bread, every time I went to buy, I would pay for 10 and they would give me 8. And every time I paid for something, I have to double check that the change was the correct one. And whenever I took a taxi, they would take me around in circles. Because they wanted to give me the tourist ride. Because they thought I wasn't from there anymore. See, I started to visit people, and people thought I had money, because I come from Canada. So they would start telling me about all their problems, and I started distributing the little money that I had left. And that wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't because all of a sudden that boyfriend that I had in high school, you know, the one that left me for Miss Big Boob at the prom, came home to visit and said, "Oh, I missed you, Isabel."
Yeah.
See, the point number 9 is something that might really get to some of you guys, the ones that are still working on this. Because it turns out that now I was a foreigner in my own country.
Arisco?
Santiago wasn't what I expected to be. And I started to get very angry when people looked at me in different places and start to, talk like that and say, "Look at her. She eats potatoes with the skin on. They must do that in Canada." And now it turns out that they criticize everything I do. How I am dressed, what I eat, what I don't eat, and the fact that now I was vegetarian, it was like, oh my God, who in their right mind would not eat meat for no reason? She's probably part of a Canadian cult. And it turns out that I can please anyone. And it turns out that everywhere I went, people wanted me to translate Madonna songs. I know, and I really do know, that my family missed me. But I also know that their entire life went on fine without me. Viva Chile.
Viva.
So who am I now? Well, now, in the next point, now it is that between us, maybe a better known fact that I love Canada. For a long, long time, I thought that saying it out loud would mean that I was being disloyal to Chile. I used to joke that when I came when I was here for about 15 years, I had been Chilean, and then I had become Canadian, so I was kind of like a Chilenian. It dawned on me the other day that I have spent more time in Canada than in Chile. So what does that make me? A Chilean? I don't know. But I know that I feel Canadian, particularly when people say and they ask me if I'm from the US. I get damn mad. How can they not know? See, I am Canadian because I love Tim Hortons. I like watching hockey. Okay, but you will know very soon why. And I have embraced the barbecue. In fact, now, I used to really be one of those things where people come with their coolers, bring their own beer to the party, and then when they didn't drink it, they take it back. I was like, what the hell is that? They bring 6 steaks, they eat 2, and then they take the other 4. I was like, now I'm the first one to say, hey, don't forget your cooler. Don't leave me any leftovers. And don't forget all your Pyrex and all that stuff because, the last thing you want is be left with all this little plastic things. So, most of all, and I think this is very crucial, I know I am Canadian now. 100% Canadian. Because I am now gluten intolerant. I know, right? Well, I didn't think this could happen to us. Honestly, I thought that those things only happened to my white friends. Like every week, my white friends had some kind of intolerance. If it wasn't to gluten, it was to dairy. And guys, this has gone so fast. We're now going to show you in my little thing, Canada. Look at how diverse it is. Oh, no, not those. Okay, now I'm clarifying to you because you gave me the look when I said I love hockey. I tell you why I love hockey. Because it's the only time that my Canadian friends become very passionate. The only time I've heard some of my friends scream, shout, kick, is when they're watching hockey. So it's such a blast, isn't it? Okay, look at this. Look at this. You know, they're not so polite anymore when they do this. I'm pretty sure they don't come out saying sorry, no? Have you ever seen the parents of a hockey player? Now that's another story altogether. Not much of a peacekeeper there. Right? Look at that. You see what I mean? So who am I now? Okay, oh shit. Okay, forget it. I'm not 100% Canadian. You know? Especially when people hear my British accent. But I know that I'm not 100% Chilean either. See, I don't like salsa or cumbia dancing. I don't like spicy food. And I never liked Julio Iglesias. Trust me, never. I know, he's the worst. But who am I? See, this is the thing, that now I realize that Canadians are unique, different. They're colorful, just like we are. Because even though many people put Latinos, all Latinos who speak Spanish in the same basket.
So you're not all the same?
Okay, let me tell you, Claudia. I don't get offended if people say, "Well, are you Mexican?" No, I don't. Because I am proud that if they think I'm Mexican, because Mexican culture is rich and is incredible. And that's what I've come to realize, that even though people sometimes, they put us all in the same basket, the only thing that unites us sometimes are the difficult things in life, like poverty, like lack of equity, like bad governments, and like everything to do with the climate change. But in fact, Latinos are different. Every culture is different and rich in tradition. And what I've learned about Canada is that Canada is also very diverse. And as I like to say to people, you need to get out of Toronto, because Canada isn't Toronto. Canada is made of people and cultures within cultures and nations, many nations. So I would like to get to the last part. This already went ahead of me. And it's step number 12 of our recovery program. You want to know about the plant. The plant is solid. The plant even gave 3 little baby plants. Their roots are strong, healthy, and now flowering. This is a very important exercise we're doing here today with all of you. Thank you so much for coming to the 12-step recovery program. You may find yourself in any one of those 12 steps, and that's okay. Eventually, you'll get to the end. But from now, For now, repeat after me. The only way to live being a transplanted is one day at a time. My name is Isabel, and I'm a recovering immigrant.